There's an American somewhere in this country today that has just signed their name. 18 or 19 years old. Maybe they just graduated high school this week, or maybe they're a year into a job that just isn't working out. And maybe they just looked into the mirror and decided they wanted to make something more of themselves. They raise their right hand and they swear an oath, not to a president, not to a party, not even to a flag, although they would happily carry and they will wear that flag. They swear an oath to a piece of paper written by men that they'll never meet in a language that some of them barely recognize anymore. The Constitution of the United States. And in that moment that they're swearing that oath, they make a promise that the rest of us may never, ever have to make. They're willing to write a check drawn on their own body, made out to the people of this country for any amount up to and including the entirety of their own life. They won't ask whether the war that they're going to be sent to is just. They won't ask whether it's been declared by Congress. They won't get a vote on it. They won't get to read the intelligence reports. They won't get to know whether their leaders were telling the truth or if they lied them into a war. Because when the country calls, they answer. And some of them won't come home. I'm Dan McKnight, chairman of Bring Our Troops Home. I served for 13 years in the Marines, the Army, and the Idaho Army National Guard, including a combat tour in Afghanistan. And today, on Memorial Day, I want to take you somewhere. 8 miles outside of Washington, D.C., on a hill that once belonged to Robert E. Lee, sits a piece of ground unlike any other in this country. It's Arlington National Cemetery. There's 400,000 graves, nearly 500,000 different stories. Most of them, by the time you and I were born, had already been forgotten by everybody except for the families that they left behind. But at the top of that hill, at the heart of the cemetery, stands one tomb, one sarcophagus, one block of white marble that holds the answer to a question that many are afraid to ask. And it began at the end of the First World War. 160,000 American boys died in fields that they had never heard of, in a war their grandparents could not have imagined. Many of them, thousands of them, were buried where they fell in a foreign land, in graves that bore no name because there was no name left to put on the stone. In March of 1921, Congress decided that one of them, just one, would come home to represent all of them. That October, in a city hall in Chalon-sur-Marne, small town in France, 4 identical caskets were placed in a row. Inside each one, the remains of an American soldier, each exhumed from a different cemetery in France, all confirmed to have died in combat, and all were confirmed to be unidentifiable. The man chosen to select among the 4 was Sergeant Edward F. Younger, a decorated combat veteran of the same war. He was handed a spray of white roses and he walked the length of the row. And ultimately, he laid the roses across the 3rd casket from the left. That casket was carried abroad the USS Olympia across the Atlantic and up the hill at Arlington. And on Armistice Day, November 11th, 1921, that unknown was finally laid to rest in American soil. President Warren G. Harding stood over the open grave and pinned the Medal of Honor to the casket of a man whose name that nobody, not his mother, not his father, not the government that sent him there, would ever know. The tomb that stands above him today was not finished until 11 years later on November 11th of 1932. The tomb, it's carved from a single block of Ewell marble, quarried in the mountains above a town in Marble, Colorado. And when that block was cut from the rock, from the mountain around it, it weighed 164 tons. 75 men spent a year extracting it from the mountain. And by the time it was finished, it had been carved down to 56 tons of the whitest, purest American marble ever taken from the ground. On the east face of the rock, the side that looks towards Washington, there are 3 figures carved in relief. A woman with a palm branch representing peace, a man with a sword representing valor, and a woman with a wreath of laurel representing victory. But it's the west face, the side that most visitors will never see, that holds the only words ever carved into the tomb of this man. 6 lines, 12 words. Here rests in honor, glory, an American soldier known but to God. That is the entire epitaph. That's the entire story that we're permitted to know. He was an American. He was a soldier. And whatever else he was, whatever name his mother whispered, whatever girl was waiting on him to come home, whatever future he meant to have, that part of the story now belongs to God. In 1958, on Memorial Day, two more unknowns joined him, one from the Second World War and one from the Korean War. President Dwight Eisenhower, who had commanded the army that produced one of them, awarded them both the Medal of Honor. In 1984, a fourth crypt was added, Vietnam unknown. But in 1998, DNA testing identified him. His name was First Lieutenant Michael Joseph Blasey. He had flown an A-37 Dragonfly, and he'd been shot down near Anlock on May 11th of 1972. He was just 24 years old. His remains were returned to the family. He is buried in St. Louis now under his own name. His crypt at Arlington remains empty. The inscription on it was changed, and it now reads, honoring and keeping faith with America's missing servicemen. Empty, because we found him, just like we vowed we always would. But the dead of the tomb of the unknown soldier are not alone. And they've never been alone, not for a single minute since July 2nd, 1937. For 89 years now, in every hour of every day, in every kind of weather this country's ever produced, a soldier of the United States Army has walked the mat behind the tomb. He is a sentinel of the 3rd U.S. Infantry Regiment, the Old Guard, the oldest active infantry unit in the United States Army, established in 1784 before there was even a constitution to defend. To stand among them, a soldier must volunteer. He must first prove himself in the Old Guard, which is an honor in and of itself. He must commit to a year of training that washes out most candidates within 2 weeks. He must memorize a 17-page packet on the history of the tomb. He must learn the grave locations of nearly 300 veterans buried throughout Arlington. And he must pass a written test of 100 randomly selected questions and miss no more than 5. He must master the uniform, not just pass. He has to master it. He doesn't have to wear it well. He has to master it to a tolerance of 1/64th of an inch. The Army dress blue uniform of a tomb sentinel is, on inspection, the most exacting garment in the American military. There are no wrinkles. There are no folds. There is no lint. Hours, sometimes 8 hours at a time, are spent on a single uniform before a single watch. And on that uniform, there is one thing missing that you will find on every other soldier in the United States Army. There is no rank. The sentinel of the tomb wears no chevrons, no insignia of any kind, nothing on the shoulders of the blue tunic, because by tradition and by reverence, no living soldier may appear to outrank the unknown. Whatever the sentinel is, a specialist, a sergeant first class, when he steps onto that plaza, he's the equal of and the servant of the man inside the tomb. His white gloves, they're moistened with water before he steps off because he refuses to risk the rifle that he carries slipping. The rifle is an M14, fully functional, and is carried on the outside shoulder away from the tomb always. That is done to signal that the sentinel stands between the fallen and any threat that the world may offer. His shoes are dress Oxfords, polished with hundreds of coats of polish over weeks of work, built up with thick soles so that his back stands perpendicular to the ground, and each heel is a steel plate. Inside of each heel against the face where the two shoes meet is a smaller piece of steel. It's called a clicker. And when the sentinel halts, when he turns, when his heels come together at the end of the movement, the sound that travels across the plaza is the sound of two pieces of steel finding each other at perfect speed. A single click. The smallest possible noise a man can make to mark the exact end of a moment of perfection. He walks at 90 steps per minute. He covers 63 feet of black rubber matting in exactly 21 steps. At the end of the mat, he stops. He turns to face the tomb. He stands at attention in silence for 21 seconds. He turns again. He shifts the rifle from one shoulder to the other, outside shoulder always. He stands for another 21 seconds. Then he walks back 21 steps, 21 seconds, 21 seconds, 21 steps. In honor of the 21 gun salute, the highest tribute the United States military pays to any living person, foreign or domestic, the sentinels of the tomb of the unknown soldier give that salute in slow motion continuously to a man whose name nobody knows, every minute of every hour of every day for 89 years. When he's relieved every hour in the winter, or every 30 minutes in the summer, or every 2 hours through the long and silent nights when the cemetery is closed, the changing of the guard is conducted with the precision of a sacrament. The relief commander appears. The spectators are called to silence. The rifle is inspected. The white gloves, every part examined in turn. The three sentinels, they meet at the center of the mat. They salute the unknowns, to whom they're never going to know their names, and they'll continue to salute for the rest of their lives. The orders are passed. The new sentinel steps into position and he begins to walk. There's not been a single missed change of guard since July 2nd of 1937. Not in the heat, not in the cold, not in the lightning, not in the blizzards. During Hurricane Sandy in 2012, the federal government shut down the city of Washington, and a tomb sentinel named Sergeant Shane Vincent volunteered to walk the mat alone for 23 straight hours. When asked about it later, he called it a basic storm. What keeps a man out there is not duty as we understand the word. The Sentinel's Creed, the words that every tomb guard memorizes and lives by. My dedication to this sacred duty is total and wholehearted. In the responsibility bestowed on me, never will I falter, and with dignity and perseverance, my standard will remain perfection. Through the years of diligence and praise and the discomfort of the elements, I will walk my tour in humble reverence to the best of my ability. It is he who commands the respect that I protect. His bravery that made us so proud, surrounded by well-meaning crowds every day, alone in the thoughtful peace of night, this soldier will, in honor, glory, rest under my eternal vigilance. When he has stood his watches, passed his test, served at the tomb for 9 months without dishonor, he is awarded the Tomb Guard Identification Badge, a piece of sterling silver in the shape of an inverted laurel wreath with the words Honor Guard below. It is the second rarest badge in the United States Army. About 10 are awarded each year. In nearly 70 years, just over 600 have ever been earned. And once it's awarded permanently, it stays with him for the rest of his life through the civilian years into old age. And it can be revoked at the discretion of the regimental commander at any time until the day he dies. Because the standard doesn't end with the uniform. This is what honor looks like. Not a ribbon tied around a tree. Not a phrase mumbled at the airport, thank you for your service. Not a discount on half-price fajitas at a chain restaurant on Memorial Day or Veterans Day. Honors a man in the dark, in the rain, alone, walking 21 steps on a 63-foot mat over a grave that holds another man whose name we'll never know. Honors the dead and the living who stand watch over them, asking nothing of us in return. So on this Memorial Day, while the sentinel walks his mat 21 steps, 21 seconds, the click of his heels echoing across the plaza where you and I are not standing, I want to leave you with one thing. That 18-year-old kid who signed his name today, who answered when his country called, he's not the one that I worry about. He's already given his answer. Whether he believes in the war or not, when his country calls, he will go. The ones that I worry about are the rest of us. Because every American whose name was added to that hill since the end of the Second World War, every flag-draped box that has come home in 80 years has come home from a war that Congress of the United States of America has never formally declared. The Constitution says that it must. Article 1, Section 8. If we want to truly respect our veterans, if we want to honor the man buried under the white marble and the men whose names that we know and the men whose names that we never will, then we must stop making more of them come home in flag-draped boxes. We owe them our reverence, but we owe them more than that. We owe them the republic that they died for. God bless our fallen. And God bless the Sentinels who walked their tour over them. And God bless the United States of America. Happy Memorial Day.